Welcome to episode 11 of the Backseat Fighter Podcast. I'm your host, Charlie Binns, and I am so excited about the episode today. I think it's one of the best yet. We did an incredible interview with Xavier, the Professor Vines, one of the most entertaining fighters out there right now, in my opinion. He just fought this past weekend at Cage Warriors 182 in San Diego, receiving the fight of the night. Absolutely incredible performance and fight. And of course, we have all of my reactions to UFC Tampa, which took place last night, the main event between Covington and Buckley. And of course, we'll react to all of the other big fights on the card. And yeah, please like, subscribe, and comment when you subscribed and let me know what you thought of UFC Tampa. And let's just get straight into the episode right now. Today on episode 11 of the Backseat Fighter Podcast, I, Charlie Binns, have the tremendous honor of speaking with one of the most entertaining fighters out there right now. He can strike out of both stances. He's got incredible leg kicks and has developed into an extremely threatening grappler. He serves in the Marine Corps and he's fresh off a fight of the night performance at Cage Warriors 182 in San Diego last night. It's my pleasure to welcome to the Backseat Fighter Podcast for the very first time, Xavier, the Professor Vines. Xavier, thank you so much for joining the show.
Of course, brother. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. How's it going? I know incredible performance last night by you. I mean, you showed again, building on your last fight, all the skills that you have in your locker, a tremendous ability on the ground, on the feet. But unfortunately, the result doesn't go your way. So just how are you feeling after the fight last night?
Yeah, I mean, I can't even be mad at the situation. Like, I can't. Like, I tried to look for like what would have caused, like why didn't it go my way, and it's just one of those. It just didn't go my way. Like, this camp was perfect, the weight cut was perfect.
Right.
I did everything I could.
Right, exactly. And then you can't really have any regrets after that. But and we'll speak about your fight like last night. But I wanted to speak a little bit first about the fights before this and how I came to know about you and why I really wanted to speak with you. The first fight I saw was your fight against Alexis Esquivel in I think it was your amateur career towards the end of it. I believe your last fight in the amateurs. And in that fight, I mean, you showed incredible ability. Obviously, you got the finish in the end. But I noticed the jab to the leg kick. I mean, you beat up his legs really bad in that fight, if I remember. You were already switching stances back then. This is even before your pro career really started. So I guess my question is, you know, when did you realize that you were kind of an elite striker in that way, were able to switch stances so comfortably? And then how did you develop that really?
So if you look back at like my career, like on the Tapologies and all the other websites that track that stuff, like I've been fighting since 2017. So been fighting for a while. So I was doing obviously I'm doing this in conjunctions with the Marine Corps. So first team I was on, the coach was very, he was like a Muay Thai crew. He was a Golden Glove boxer. So his precedence was striking. I grew up wrestling. So everything I learned striking wise, I learned from him.
Wow.
So like, I've always just kind of like learned like striking, and it was just kind of like that, getting to the point of just letting my hands go. So like, I was doing a lot of Muay Thai and MMA, like and boxing, like in conjunction with each other. So like, it just kind of developed over time.
And you always felt like you gravitated towards obviously more of the striking side of things?
Yeah, I grew up wrestling and like all that, but like whenever I started doing like Muay Thai and kickboxing and boxing matches, I was like, I like hitting people. Like, it's just fun.
No, I started training Muay Thai at Renzo Gracie here in New York City, and like I was like, oh, maybe I should do the jiu-jitsu program as well. But I was like, you know what, I want to learn how to like actually hit people. It's the same mentality. But yeah, even building off of that fight, obviously, then you start making your way in the pros, and then you enter Cage Warriors, you know, the famous yellow gloves. And obviously, I saw that fight you had with Painbert, who was also fighting last night at Cage Warriors 182. I mean, that was an incredible night fight. Could have been fight of the night that night. But I really wanted to speak about your fight with Diego Bigelow, because that was when I felt like you really showed your progression as a mixed martial artist, that you were really entering kind of what I would consider your like best performance in that sense. And even in that fight, I remember like the body kick out of the southpaw stance. You had a great, again, jab to leg kick out the orthodox stance. You know, did you feel the same way that, you know, your last performance, that big win that you had last time out at Cage Warriors 173 was your best performance so far?
Yeah. I felt that way when I look back and watch it, and I look at it and how I was moving and the things me and my coaches are implementing right now, like I'm doing those things. Like it's not like I'm just doing stuff at practice and then I fight and do some random shit. So it's like I'm doing what he is teaching me, the way he's teaching me, and when he wants me to implement. So it's nice.
And I guess my question there is, you know, I think that we hear a lot of stories in MMA and professional fighting in general about people who are very good in the gym and they get to the cage, they get to the bright lights. And as you said, like you could implement a totally different style than what you've been training. Have you always been able to kind of adapt to the big lights? And how do you do that mentally? Like, how do you prepare yourself to actually implement what you've been training?
I mean, shit, at this point, sorry if I'm cursing.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
It's just at this point, as many fights as I have, and like I get like amateur and pros are two different things, but at the end of the day, from all the boxing, the Muay Thai, MMA I've done, even the wrestling I've done growing up, like just being on the stage, it's the same thing every single time. It's just a different person. And maybe the time limit's different. That's how I look at it. I go in there, I do the same thing. I do the same prep, and I go out there and like I enter my flow state and then I just go have fun. The best thing my coach can tell me before we go is just go have fun. Because that means he just wants me to go do what I do. It means he's confident and he knows that I know what I need to do. He doesn't need a coach.
You know, it's a great concept because for a lot of people, I think getting into a fight is probably the scariest, most not fun thing they could ever do. And I feel like that's what makes people like you and fighters in general at the elite level so special, is that you're able to just enter the flow state and have fun in there while somebody's really trying to hurt you. But let's talk a little bit about the fight last night. I mean, you come out as soon as the bell goes, you come out and you go for a takedown. Did you know that that's the plan you were going to implement? And did you know that Navarette was a striker and that you were going to try and exploit the ground game as soon as the bell started?
So we didn't, like, I knew he had wrestling because like his little Tapology picture, he had a picture of him in a singlet. So I was like, he must have wrestled. And if you're going to post that, probably good at it. And if he's from California, California is a pretty good wrestling state. Like it wasn't like the plan was to shoot because I thought he was going to be a better striker than me. Like I've touched Muay Thai belts and titles before, so I'm not a bum on the feet.
By far, no, by far not. No.
Yeah, so like I know how to strike. It's just wherever I felt comfortable, and it's just also like why not? Like if I can hold him down on the ground like that, like why not show him that I can do that? So it gives him something else to worry about later. You know, if the fight would have lasted a little longer. Right.
And then obviously you go for the Kimura very early. I thought it was over at that point, to be honest with you. And then he's able to exactly. He's able to post and go and you're trying to get up, and then you obviously transition to the armbar. And then I thought it was over again. So I want to ask you like what you were thinking in that moment. Obviously, I'm sure it's some more of the same.
So pretty much like what everybody else thought. The announcers, everybody said like they thought it was over. I did too. Like I got it, and I'm like, all right. Like I'm like. I just had to like turn this a little bit more. I'm going to break his arm or break his shoulder or something. Something's going to happen and they're going to have to stop it. But like, it just was not coming. I did release that head pressure a little too early, so that allowed him to sit up. But then I was like, I'm not letting go of this arm. Like I still have it. I think I can transition to the arm bar. And then I did. And then I was like, and in better case, I have the belly down arm bar. Like that one's like pretty much dead to rights. Yeah. And he just fucking weird armed his way out of it. And I must have not had the grip like secure enough, so it happened like the transition was so quick and everything. Like, he was probably just like an inch more free than I thought he was.
Right, and you know I was so shocked, especially on the armbar when you had the belly down, that he didn't tap, and like I don't even know how he got his shoulder out of there. I can't believe he was able to even have the flexibility or the mobility in his shoulder to even get it out at that point. But then obviously you guys go to the feet and we kind of see you in what I would consider as your like wheelhouse, where you're probably going to be the most advantageous in your fights. And again, you're kind of piecing him up on the feet. I think at one point what happens is he goes for like a lead uppercut. You step back and you fire the right hand and you blind him with the left at the same time and you rock him. I mean, then you start going after him after you threw a flying knee up against the cage. And then of course you guys are kind of in the clinch and he hits your cup. And you have to kind of take a break. What was going through your head in that moment where you're kind of having success and then obviously there has to be kind of a forced breakthrough, kind of an illegal shot?
Yeah, I mean, it was unfortunate that it happened because like it happened, and then at first I was gonna ignore it, and I was like, all right, my balls kind of hurt a little bit, so I had to take a second. And I mean, the ref didn't like question it, so obviously he must have saw it. So it's just it is what it is. It sucks because I had like that little bit of momentum shift, like where I was on him, gave him a minute to regroup and everything. But I mean, I'm pretty sure if I remember right, I think immediately after that that pretty much happened again, where we ended up in that same situation.
You literally, yeah. I mean, then obviously again, kind of walk us through what happened after that point. You kind of reset. You're getting back into those exchanges on the feet with him, and I thought you did a great job personally of kind of initiating those exchanges. Now I thought you were getting the better side of those exchanges, and he was able to hit you with some shots. But yeah, walk us through those exchanges and his toughness in the moment.
Yeah, like the way it was like playing in my field of vision was like everything was kind of happening in slow motion for me. Like it was like the first time like I had noticed. I was like, oh shit! I was like, I can see the stuff he was doing. Like usually I'm just fighting and I'm just kind of like doing it. Right. But this time I was like in my flow state, but I was like aware of it. Like I didn't like go on autopilot flow state. Like sometimes I'll do that where I'll just kind of go into autopilot. This time I could see. So I'll see the kicks, I'll like slip him or check him or whatever. Obviously he was still landing some stuff, you know, I'm not gonna say he didn't fucking hit me. He did. But you know, we were both hitting each other. It was when I did notice when I look back at it, it was when I was trading 1-to-1 was where he started having the advantages compared to when I would flurry in and hit him with those combos that would rock him. So it's like, it was like kind of like those. So like I saw him like he would throw something and then I would pull and then the two would be right there, which is something we worked. And then I'd catch him and then I would just continue in with more combination and I'd get him and then you'd end up in that same situation. So that's like what I was seeing was just like, I can see it and I could pull and then come back with the two.
And I guess this is like kind of a question that I would like to ask for personally and for people watching. Like you said, you're entering that flow state, but you're able to kind of recognize that you're in that flow state and you're seeing things coming. Are you kind of having an internal conversation with yourself at that point? Like, okay, he's throwing this, then I'm going to throw this. Or what's going through your mind as a fighter in the heat of the moment, winning those exchanges?
So it's kind of like, let me see if I can, how do I explain this in like my own way? Yeah, fuck it. We'll see how I spin it out. So it's pretty much like, just like when I'm in this one, especially like, it was like, it kind of felt like, honestly, like my coach was holding mitts in front of me. And doing the things that we were seeing. So like the way he was holding the mitts and the way he was doing stuff was just how stuff was portraying. So like I was seeing those things and then there was like certain triggers that triggered like, oh, it's time to do this combination. And it was just that the things we were working gave me like signals. Like if he does this, do this. So I'm like seeing those signals and I'm like, all right, cool. Like I can see like the things we've noticed and like we can implement them and exploit.
I think that showed because, I mean, up until the very end of the fight, I thought you were really in that flow. You could tell you were in that flow state and I felt like you were landing everything that you wanted to. But honestly, let's just go through quickly that finishing exchange. Obviously, you're dominating the fight and then he's able to land a few shots and get you on the ground and land the rear naked choke in the end. But, you know, there was only 4 seconds left in the round. Is that something that's going through your head at that moment? And kind of explain to, the people at home, like, when somebody's on your back and, you know, you've been hit by some big shots, what the mentality is there as well?
Yeah, so one of my buddies asked me, he was like, why'd you tap so fast? I'm like, to be honest, like the shot he dropped me with, like when he dropped me and I like fell, like I was out of it. So like I wasn't aware of anything. I thought like when we went back to the back, I thought he knocked me out. I thought that's how I got finished. I didn't know I got choked until I watched it. So that whole, after he dropped me, I don't remember that. If I'm being honest and transparent. So
thank you. Thank you for being transparent. Really appreciate that.
So whatever was happening and whatever I was doing was just like me and like that was me and autopilot just trying to do something what my body felt like it was trying to do. Obviously it didn't do the right things and he got the choke. I wasn't all the way there. And I definitely didn't know how much time was left. Because if I knew there was 4 seconds, I would just hold my breath and wait 4 seconds.
No, exactly. And that's why I think a lot of the times it's so easy for people at home to be like, why didn't he just wait? You know, there was 4 seconds left in the round. Why didn't he just wait, you know, or just hold his breath or just try and survive those extra 4 seconds? But, you know, when you're in the cage, when you're actually taking strikes, when you're fighting these guys, it's a whole different ball game. But thank you for being transparent and honest about that. I think that's really important for people to know, especially on this podcast, on this show. I want to help people understand what it's like to be a fighter, because I'm not a fighter myself. So we call this show the Backseat Fighter, because I'm kind of talking about fights, but I've never been in there myself. And I really want to help educate people about what is actually going on for you guys in there. I guess now looking at it, like, unfortunately, the result didn't go your way, but it was a great performance. I felt like it kind of just continued straight on from that Diego Bigelow fight in terms of your technical ability, in terms of your accuracy, in terms of those leg kicks, in terms of, I saw you throw in that, it was like a cross to the high kick again out the orthodox stance. I felt like you were really on top of your game again. But now that, you know, obviously you've got the result on your record, I think you've had 18 fights, is it, over amateur and professional in terms of MMA? Something like that.
Yeah, this at 14 amateur fights, and this is 6.
Oh, so maybe 20. 20. So
Yeah.
my math was wrong there. But, you know, how do you, as like an established veteran, a super fan-friendly fighter, like move on now in terms of the next couple of weeks, the next couple of months, rebuilding and going again? And what advice could you maybe give to maybe a younger fighter or anybody in life who's going through some sort of adversity to now kick on and come back?
That was good. I was hoping questions like these would be asked. Yeah, man. So it's tough because, you know, I'm not just fighting, and I'm also not just like doing like a job at like Walmart or something. Like, I'm also a full-time active duty Marine.
Wow.
I do explosive ordnance disposal, so I have a very technical field that I need to be fully invested in, you know, so I don't die.
Right.
Very dangerous job that we do as safely as we can and everything. And you got to be on your P's and Q's with that. And then I'm also doing fighting, which is not a game. It's serious occupation, and you can also get hurt fucking around in there if you're not taking it seriously. So I'm obviously doing this like 50-50 balance thing, and I'm fine doing that. Like, people keep telling me like, you need to pick one. I'm like, nah, I think I'll do both.
Right.
And I've been doing both for 7 years. So like, and I haven't had a problem. Obviously, I feel like my record is I'm 3-3 now, and it doesn't display the abilities that I have. Like, which is unfortunately, if you're the next person I fight and you look at my 3-3 record and like, oh, this guy sucks.
That's a great point. That's a great
get
point.
out of that, then you know, that's all I have to say. It sucks because, look, man, like, I'm 30. I don't have time to, like, this is a setback, and now I got to do more to make it to where I would like to get to. Obviously, the main goal is like try to make it to the damn UFC. Like, but you know, Dana White talks about how he doesn't take old 32-year-old prospects and stuff like that. So, you know, we'll see when we get there. But I'm just along for the ride, man. I love fighting, and this is fun. And if you like doing something, it doesn't matter how old you are. Like, if you like doing something, just do it. Like, everybody's gonna tell you not to do something. Everybody's gonna tell you to, like, what they think you should fucking do. And no, fuck that. Like, if you want to do something, go do it. If you want to go do that thing that you always said you wanted to do and are too afraid to do it, go do it. Right. I made this decision when I was 19 that I wanted to fight. I said, I was watching some fights with my dad, and I was like, I could do that. Like, I just gotta learn how to hit people. I already wrestled, and I'll be good. And like, here we are, and I'm fucking doing it on TV. So,
right. I mean, that's such great insight, especially just to think about like how you guys as fighters do feel the pressures of, you know, do I have enough time? Is this a setback? What am I going to do? Like the rest of us, right? And I think what you guys put on the line is such, obviously, more of a risk than what everyone else does. You know, you're putting your health on the line, but you're also putting your time, sacrificing your family and friends' time. And obviously you're doing an incredible job with the Marines as well. But I guess my question for you then is, like, in terms of getting to that next level, like, I believe that you've got all of the components ready in your game to really, really be kicking on. And you mentioned there that, you know, my 3-3 record doesn't represent who you are as a fighter. And I completely agree with you. And I don't think you're too many fights away from really getting back to where you were or getting way, way more further in your career. So I wouldn't be too worried about that. If, as someone watches you, as someone who's a fan of your game, I really wouldn't be too worried about this loss impacting you in that way. Because for people who are actually watching the sport, and I know obviously people in the UFC, people who are recruiting, watch the fights. They know who's a really, really good fighter and who's not. So, you know, definitely I wouldn't be too worried about that in your case, to be honest with you.
I appreciate that.
No, I'm serious about that, because like a lot of people who are really into this sport know like who's an elite fighter, what you're able to bring to the table. And like people on Twitter sitting at home with on their keyboards saying that, you know, criticizing you without acknowledging that they themselves wouldn't be able to go in there and do that. You shouldn't be listening to those guys. So that's what I wanted to say.
I got some of that. I got some of that for the first time last night.
Really? What stuff did you see?
Messages. It was just guys telling me like, "Oh, you're a bum. You're abysmal in the cage. Do something else. Never set foot in a cage again." And I'm like, obviously, you know, people like that talk from like a private profile. So like, I don't know this person. Right. I don't know who they are. I don't care. Like, I'm not, oh wow, a guy on Instagram telling me I should never fight again. Let me listen to him. Let me listen to this random guy. I would never do that because, you know, I have control of my own life. And if you're sad with your life and have time to shit on people doing what they want to do, I'm sorry that your life sucks that bad, man.
But that's so often the case. And like, I'm never like one that I don't want to use this platform to ever be like, oh, you're a casual. You never know what you're talking about. I don't feel like there's really space for that conversation if you're talking about this game, this sport seriously. But at the same time, like, you do have to understand, like, if for example, Charlie, if I'm going to criticize a fight or if I'm going to analyze a fight, I have to acknowledge my own biases, my own shortcomings, stuff that I don't know. And I think hopefully MMA can get to a point where you don't have to deal with people messaging you the night after probably the fight of the night where you were literally very close to winning 3 or 4 times in the same round. That, you know, hopefully evolves into a space where that doesn't have to happen anymore. But what I do want to ask you, you mentioned obviously there that you're doing the EOD stuff with the Marine, and I commend you for that. What stuff from that 50% of your life have you transitioned into your training, into your fighting, into that other 50% of your life, you know?
Like what from what I do for work?
In terms of they don't transition to fighting? Yeah, in terms of the lessons you learned from that and how it mixes in.
I mean, first and foremost, like, you know, there's people that like assume you're afraid or like afraid of them or something like that. Like, I'm not gonna be out here saying I'm out here like disarming bombs like that have like 5-second timers on them and I need to do something. Like, obviously it's all, I've just been doing training and stuff like that. And like, cause we're not actively doing anything right now. We're not in conflict, so none's going on. So obviously we're doing a lot of training, but like with my job, like an accident could happen and now fucking, you know, some catastrophic happens. Right. So obviously you need to be like competent and dialed in and fucking focused on what you're doing. Cause even with the simple training, if you do something stupid, you're going to blow yourself up or blow somebody else up. It's like, you don't need to be putting yourself or anybody else in them situations. So kind of like the focus and attention to detail that I have to have in my day-to-day lifestyle every day kind of translates into what I'm doing in the gym. I'm like focusing on like little small, minute things and like trying to fix those things.
So I imagine that really helps being detail orientated, especially in the way you've developed your techniques. I can imagine that focus on detail has really helped you as well. But how do you as a person, like, you know, me, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to go to college. I want to do journalism. I want to, you know, be in combat sports. How do you as a person like develop, you know, I want to be a fighter and I want to train to disarm like deadly bombs. Like how have you developed kind of that relationship with dangerous things that you really want to put yourself in those positions?
Just, I've never been one for like wanting to do like the traditional office, sitting at a desk job and stuff like that. Albeit there's a lot of desk work that needs to be done. Like we're not just blowing up stuff whenever we want to. Like you got to do a lot of paperwork and there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done before anything happens. Right. But I've never been one for doing like traditional things. Like I want to live a normal lifestyle. Like I never did ever. Like growing up, I always wanted to do something different that people didn't do. Right. So like, joined the Marine Corps. Obviously, a lot of people joined the Marine Corps, but like I joined the Marine Corps. I like, even though a lot of people didn't want me to do it, like my mom, dad, they didn't want me to join the Marine Corps. They wanted me to join the Air Force or, you know, a safer branch or whatever. They built their assumptions were. Nobody wanted me to do EOD. When I told my mom and dad that that's what I was going to do, they were a little upset. So at
least they care about you.
They love me. I'm their firstborn. Like obviously they care about my well-being and stuff. Right. But like obviously everything's fine. So and then the fighting, like I mean, they already knew I was gonna do that. Like I grew up wrestling. Like I always talked about fighting. So like and my mom she was watching me last night and that was the first time she ever seen me get kind of like, you know, a little ruffled up like that. So I felt bad like that she had to see that because, you know, she don't want to see stuff like that. But it's just I mean, I'm kind of an adrenaline junkie, to be honest. A simple answer. I just like doing stuff like that. It gets me riled up. Like, I love it. Like, it makes me feel, it reminds me like that I have vitality, that it can be taken away, and that you should appreciate the vitality that you have.
I mean, that's incredible perspective. And I feel like, does that help you in like, I've asked another fighter this in Cage Warriors. I don't know if you know him. He's called Joshua Flash on Wardy. But I kind of asked him what you just mentioned there, like, and that recognition of your own vitality and all of these things, does that give you good perspective for other things in your life, navigating other challenges outside of fighting, outside of the EOD stuff? Does that help you kind of get through adversity in life easier, the fighting and doing the hard stuff that you do?
Yeah, it's like fighting, and it's kind of like the way I look at it, and the way like trying to build my own like philosophies for one day when I like open my own gym and train people, try to spread my own thing. But like fighting and life are kind of like a synonym with each other. Like they're similar. Like they reflect each other. Like right now, I'm on the low right now. Sure, everybody who's watching, or you, myself, anybody in the world, at one point this year, at one point in their life, they had a low point.
Right.
And you hit a low point, and you got to sit there and kind of reflect with yourself and decide how you're going to come back from this point. You can let it kind of get in the way of things and interfere with other aspects of your life, or you can, roll with the punches, appreciate what you still have, and put that good energy to something positive. Like, yeah, I took an L last night. It sucks, but I still got other shit to do,
Right. Exactly. I think it's like, it is a big lesson. And my dad's actually like big into mental health. He does a lot of work in the UK for mental health in terms of people more in corporate jobs and mental health in companies and stuff like that. But one of like the simple big lessons that you just mentioned there is just, you got to get on with stuff. You got to get on with life. You can't just sit there and let it stew in your brain. There's other stuff to do. And especially you've got, obviously, like maybe people have criticized you for, you can't have both of these things and do them. But, maybe you took an L last night, but you still got a great job to be doing, still got other stuff that you have in your life already whilst you're fighting, where maybe a lot of fighters don't have other stuff going on outside. So, I mean, I think what I'd like to do now is play a little game that I thought of before the podcast episode, right? And I'm just going to name a couple fighters and you have to give me one word to describe them. Okay? So
okay. Wait, right. Are they UFC fighters, cage warrior fighters?
There's a mixture. There's a mixture. But mostly UFC fighters.
So I might not know some of them. So.
Yeah, no. There's no like really obscure names. Don't worry. All right. Okay. Israel Adesanya. What comes to your brain?
Anime guy.
We'll hyphenate it as well. Yeah. That's hilarious.
That's one word. Anime guy is one word.
Yeah. Okay, that is one word. Okay. Charles Oliveira.
Happy. He's a happy fighter.
He is.
I love seeing that guy fight, and he makes me happy.
He makes everyone happy. I feel like he's the nicest guy ever. I feel like. Okay, your most recent win, Diego Bigelow.
Man's tough. He took everything I gave him. He's tough.
Yeah, he did take a lot of damage in that fight, to be honest with you. Okay. Alex Pereira, Poatan, light heavyweight champion right now in the UFC.
Shama.
Okay. John Jones. That's a big one. John Jones.
He was inspirational for me. So he was the reason I got into fighting. So inspirational in the beginning. Now he kind of like, but he was inspirational for me at one point.
Right. And I'll ask you a quick question for that one. Do you think he needs to fight Tom Aspinall? There's a lot of stuff going on right now about the heavyweight division, the heavyweight strap. Do you think he needs to fight Tom Aspinall, or what do you see on that fight really quick?
I would like him to fight Tom Aspinall because I personally, again, like, I think recency bias is a thing. And I feel like people kind of forget who John Jones is and what he's done to people.
Right.
Tom Aspinall is good. Don't get me fucking wrong. Like, that guy's a monster. I just feel like, fighters like John Jones only come around once, and that's why there's only him walking around right now until he gets out of the way. he doesn't. I feel like he should fight him. I would like to see it because what else is there at heavyweight if he retires and doesn't fight him? Like Tom Aspinall fights Cyril Gahn. I don't see that bullshit.
Yeah, I think for me, it's like if John wants to keep fighting, I feel like that's the Tom Aspinall fight because before his fight, he was talking about Alex Pereira. I think at one point it was Jamal Hill, Derek Lewis was even mentioned.
Yeah. He's just trying to get money. That's all he just needs to like. I'm not gonna fight him unless you pay me.
Yeah.
Because if it's gonna be his last fight and he's gonna be done with fighting, he might as well get. He's been fighting for hella years. He might as well get his big pay.
I agree. Okay, back to the game. Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's my fault. I asked the question. I got us off track. Okay. Colby Covington, who's fighting tonight, in about 5 hours against Joaquin Buckley. Colby Covington.
Trump. Said only get one word, so Trump.
These are great answers. I love it. Okay, 2 more. Okay, Raul Navarette, your opponent last night. 1 word. Tough again, yeah.
He gets tough too. Just the Hispanic guys are just tough.
No, he took shots that I thought would have put him out, as well as the submission attempts beyond the submission attempts as well. Okay.
Well, I'll say heart. If I'm gonna change this, I don't use the same. He had heart because in the beginning, I thought I was gonna,
Okay. Last one. This is the most important one. Okay. This is the big one. This is the main one of the game. The Professor Xavier Vines. 1 word.
Hard to say because fucking it doesn't show, but I believe in myself. Fucking future greatest.
Let's go.
I like you gotta bet on yourself every time.
I love it. I love it. You know what? Thank you so
Muhammad
much.
Ali took L's, you know?
Exactly. It's true. And he's the greatest and forever will be the greatest in my opinion. But Xavier, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. I really appreciate it. Of course, man. I really appreciate the insight you gave, not only on the fight last night, the fights that I loved talking about, the Diego Bigelow fight, your fight against Alexis Esquivel, but of course, outside the ring and the cage, broader lessons that everybody, even if you're not a fighter, can take lessons from. Really excited to see you back in there whenever you decide to get back in there. One of the most entertaining fighters, one of my favorite fighters to watch outside the UFC. And yeah, just keep your head up, man. Keep doing what you're doing outside with the Marines and stuff. And yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. Episode 11 of the Backseat Fighter Podcast. Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's get into this main event between Covington and Buckley. Obviously, Buckley was seen as the heavy favorite going into this fight. I think he was a minus 220, if I recall correctly. And, that was justified because, as we said in episode 10 in our predictions and my analysis coming into this fight, that in that most recent Colby Covington outing against Leon Edwards, he just did not look the same. He looked like he had lost a step. He looked like he wasn't able to implement that old Colby Chaos Covington style of just pushing the pace, drowning you, overwhelming you with punches. I don't necessarily throwing the big knockout shots, but if you can just throw way more than your opponent and keep them constantly with their back to the fence, you're going to have a great recipe for success and you're going to win a lot more times than you're going to lose. And you just boost your win probability in that sense. And since that Leon Edwards fight, and maybe perhaps a little bit before that, we started to see a little bit of decline in Colby Covington's game. Now, Joaquin Buckley, let's not take any credit away from him. He puts on an absolute clinic, shows how technical he's becoming, how intelligent he's becoming, how he can crash the space, his ability to stand his base and throw multiple punch combinations in the pocket without taking too much damage. And, he showed an ability to really hurt Colby Covington in this fight. But let's get a little bit more detailed here. Obviously, the big theme of the fight, big point of the fight, big headline of the fight was the fact that Colby Covington got a terrible cut on his eyelid on his first takedown attempt. Now, I don't necessarily want to use that to say, well, if that didn't happen, then we would have seen a completely different fight. But it's definitely a factor in anybody who now, when Colby Covington inevitably comes out and uses that as not an excuse, but, keeps in character and says, I would have beat Buckley if I didn't get that cut. Listen, I don't necessarily think that's true, but I also don't think the other extreme is true, that it didn't have didn't play a factor at all. It definitely, destroyed the vision of Colby Covington in that right eye. He wasn't able to see the range of Buckley, so it definitely helped Buckley in terms of the striking. And Buckley intelligently, we talked about his IQ developing as a fighter, able to target that right eye, with the jab obviously Colby Covington in that southpaw stance kind of leaves that right eye forward so that, Joaquin Buckley can really target it. And, I just thought there was a real urgency whenever Colby Covington was able to get Joaquin Buckley to the ground, a real urgency from Joaquin to get up, post, and not accept the position on the ground, not accept to be on his back, not accept to be in Colby Covington's wheelhouse. And you saw even when Colby Covington had small pieces of success, small moments of success with the wrestling, he still looked like himself in terms of his ability to just keep hitting the guard, keep throwing those ground and pound shots and keep himself safe. But, Joaquin Buckley's so explosive, such a great athlete, such good discipline, obviously through his training camps. And when you're on your fourth fight this year and now fourth victory inside one calendar year, you're going to be in shape. You're going to be explosive. You're going to be fit. You're going to be able to do all of those physical things necessary, those physical details that might give you the edge in a fight against somebody like Colby Covington, who is admittedly older, who is not been the most active welterweight, who is coming into this fight on short notice. Use those physical advantages. And I think Joaquin Buckley did that to a T. Now, what do we really think is next for Colby Covington? I know in my predictions, in my analysis in episode 10, I said that the Leon Edwards fight might have been the death of Colby Covington, the elite fighter. And I didn't really show up in the camera last time, but I'll hold it up again. I don't know if you can see it because my handwriting is that of a first grader. But yes, I said, maybe we've seen the last of Colby Covington as, the title challenger, as a top 5 welterweight. And I think, Joaquin Buckley kind of just represents the new generation replacing the older guard in that sense. And unfortunately for Colby, I don't see him, now going on and fighting another up and comer and getting back into those top echelon spots or even looking at a title shot in the near future. So unfortunately, in that sense, what does he do for him? What does he do next? What are the options next? Is it retirement? Is it do something else? Is it take a while out? Or is it get straight back in there and prove to us, again, as media, as fans, as executives in the UFC, as the brass, Dana White, Hunter, Campbell, Sean Shelby, McMahon, can he prove to them that he still deserves to be, up fighting for titles? Or can he just be a guy who is a main event on a fight night every now and then? And, it depends what Colby Covington, the person, not the character, wants from the sport. But it's very interesting. I think he really took this to heart. I think he saw this as a great opportunity to get back on the horse. And, it was a high-risk, high-reward scenario coming in on short notice against such an elite fighter in Joaquin Buckley. But for me, even though he changed team, he obviously brought Chael Sonnen into his corner. He did the Hulk Hogan walkout. He does have kind of star power, or at least a big name inside the UFC. So if he wants to keep fighting for financial reasons, I think that's, fair enough. And that should be his decision. But, health-wise, Colby Covington's probably made a lot of money in this game. Took a lot of damage tonight, took a lot of damage in those Usman fights. Maybe he doesn't want to get back in there and doesn't want to have to take more damage. And he's already got a legacy established that isn't necessarily going to change after 3 title fight losses. So for me, I thought Buckley looked incredible. I don't think Covington looked as bad as he did in the Leon Edwards fight. I just thought, Joaquin Buckley deserves all the credit in that sense. And, he just looked incredible again. We talked about that Ruzi Boya fight that he had where he showed that development as a martial artist, that IQ. And I think he took another step today and even showed acumen for the game, for the marketing, for the business side as a fighter, representing yourself in the post-fight interview with Michael Bisping, say, trying to rile up the crowd and say, okay, guys, I've got 3 names and whoever you scream for the loudest is who I'm going to fight next. I think that's a great way to get a clip online. It's a great way to involve the crowd then. Those people will look back and go, well, I cheered the most for Usman and he's actually going to fight Usman, so he hears me, so I feel connected to Joaquin. So I think it's a really smart move by him, just in terms of his representation of himself, in terms of his brand, in terms of his marketing. And I think we are going to see Joaquin Buckley fight Kamaru Usman. I think that's a great fight. I think Kamaru might be interested in that fight. I think he'll see that, okay, Colby Covington did have some success with the takedowns. And, Joaquin Buckley isn't the most polished striker in terms of technical ability, in terms of, how you would teach stand-up. Now, is he one of the best stand-up fighters in the UFC in the world? Yes, I think he is, because he's powerful, he's explosive, he has great IQ and great eyes and great timing and rhythm. He's able to throw shots when you're not expecting, offbeat. and stand in the pocket and has incredible balance and athleticism to be able to throw those heavy combinations and keep himself safe at the same time. But I do believe that Kamaru Usman will be looking at that thinking, okay, I can stand with this guy at least. And, obviously he probably believes his wrestling is better than Colby Covington's. He can match up better athletically with Joaquin Buckley, even at the age of 39 that I believe Kamaru Usman is. But I'm so excited for that fight next, and I would hope to see that in the first quarter of 2025 if Joaquin Buckley wants to stay active, or if he deservedly wants to take some time out just because he's been so active. And we know, at least from listening to fighters, at least from watching the sport for a while, at least from speaking with people that matter in the sport, that training camps back to back, 4 fights in a year have to take a toll on the body, and damage will occur, injuries will occur. And I'm sure Joaquin Buckley wasn't perfect coming into this fight either. And in terms of, Colby Covington had the cut, but I'm sure Joaquin Buckley was also dealing with some injuries and things like that. And that's just the game that they play. That's the risk that they take as incredible special humans who fight for a living inside a cage in front of thousands. And yeah, but absolutely beautiful main event in terms of the controversy factor, the walkouts, the call-outs afterwards, and obviously the name value and just the technical ability in there. Incredible main event. But let's move to the co-main event of the evening. It was Cub Swanson versus Billy Quarantillo. Now, I was very, very hopeful that Cub Swanson would be able to show that he was still an elite fighter, not necessarily that he would even win, because I don't want to be too biased on the show, and I do want to acknowledge if I am being biased. I do. Everybody who loves the UFC probably has a soft spot for Cub Swanson as well, and just loves fighting. He's just such a veteran. I think he's got 32, 33 fights in the UFC. He's 29-14 or 13-14 now as a record, and still fighting at 41 years old against a good guy in Billy Quarantillo, who's 36 years old. 5 years his younger than him, and I just believe that it was a very, very good performance. And obviously he got fight of the night honors, and it deserves so because they just went back and forth. It was a war, and for Cub Swanson to be able to use that footwork still to look so in shape and able to move even deep into that third round, we're kind of rolling with shots, able to defend the takedowns, reverse the position on the cage when Billy Quarantillo went in for the clinch. Billy Quarantillo looked good, and it wasn't just the fact that Cub Swanson was giving up those positions. No, Billy was making Cub work and was having some success. And obviously in that third round, Cub Swanson, just a picture perfect right hand, just one shot, drops Billy Quarantillo into the ground, and it's all said and done right there. The ref has to step in, and you have to imagine, like, being 41 years old, still able to compete in front of thousands in a UFC Fight Night co-main event, to be able to get a knockout like that. It must feel so great. And, in that post-fight interview, Cub Swanson referenced that his wife and him had talked about retirement, talked about this Billy Quarantillo fight being his last one. And, it was a little sad in a selfish way, because you kind of want it to be like the last dance announced before the fight. But this may be the fairy tale ending for Cub Swanson. This may be the best way to leave the sport, because if you can go out on top like that with an incredible knockout after an amazing legendary career, Hall of Famer guaranteed, and you don't have to take any more damage or take another loss or go out, like we see so many of the legends of this sport go out, and in all fighting sports, in boxing and Muay Thai and in whatever it is, every time we usually see our legends fall. And obviously Cub Swanson's not going to go on and be a featherweight champion, unfortunately. He definitely still can mix it up with some guys, but does he want to risk taking more damage? Does he want to risk taking a loss when he just put on an absolute clinic and an absolute fight of the night, banger fight in front of a big crowd, not in the Apex, not with 10 people watching, and was able to deliver one of the best knockouts of the year? I don't know. I really don't know. That's obviously up to Cub Swanson. But, his family, I'm sure, want him to just be done with it. But at the end of the day, it comes down to him. Does he feel like he has it left in him to do one more? Does he feel like he needs a proper send-off? That's all that we remain. Well, that just remains to be seen, doesn't it? And I'd like to know what you guys think. Do you think Cub Swanson should go out on that one, on that beautiful performance against Billy Quarantillo, or do you think he should do one more and kind of announce it as the last dance, the last fight? But it is a dangerous game, especially when you're a professional fighter fighting at that level. Just to do the just one more fight, you know, it's a very dangerous game, and it's at the end of the day, it's not a game, you know, and that's what, you know, Xavier Vines kind of referenced in his interview today. This is not a game. When you step in there, you can really get hurt, and you know that's what a lot of these fighters thrive on, is that danger and that adrenaline rush. To be honest with you, but let's move on now to what the next fight on the card was. Just before the co-main event, we had Manel Kape versus Bruno Silva. Let me take a sip of water. I hope you guys are hydrating yourselves too. This was a fight that I thought would be fight of the night. And, you know, I really, really took a lot of time in my analysis and my predictions in episode 10 to go through Manel Kape in terms of being an elite fighter. I was so high on his ability in the octagon. And I think a lot of people may have lost that idea, imagination, or picture of him just in terms of his ability because he lost most recently to Muhammad Mokaev. And it shows you how good Muhammad Mokaev is, to be fair. But Manel Kape, oh my goodness, what a clinic he put on. His ability to, you know, obviously switch stances, but then get into that flow state where he's dribbling in between the legs and showboating, and then throwing the 1-2, and then slipping, and throwing another 4-5 punch combination. I just really believe that he deserves a title shot. And he even, if people didn't catch it, after the second round where he's dominating Bruno Silva, and we'll get into a couple of the nuances of the fight in a second, he goes to Dana White in between rounds and starts screaming, "Give me my title shot. I'm better than all of these guys. Nobody can beat me." And then goes in to that third round and finishes Bruno Silva brutally. Now, in that fight, Bruno Silva, I think, hit Manel Kape in the cup 3 times with a teep kick. And, you know, obviously had to have a point deducted from him. And it kind of just increased the fire in the fight because, you know, obviously if you're already lost the first round and then you get a point deducted for the second round, you need to go for the finish. You need to get the knockout. And he also got eye poked, I believe, with one of the teep kicks to the cup. So Manel Kape received the eye poke and the cup shot at the same time, was down and out for a bit, but obviously was able to get back on the horse and didn't seem to slow down. What I will say is that Keith Peterson did a great job with those initial fouls from Bruno Silva towards Manel Kape. But of course, if in that final sequence, Manel Kape actually throws his own teep kick and I believe connects with the cup of Bruno Silva. Now, if you're going to stop the fight and do the right thing for Manel Kape, you've got to stop the fight and do the right thing for Bruno Silva. And, you know, Keith Peterson doesn't step in soon enough. And obviously the barrage for Manel Kape comes after that hit to the cup. And I do believe that's a slight problem because you need to ref it fairly. And do I think that Manel Kape could have finished Bruno Silva? Obviously, he was having an amazing performance, a masterclass, I think, as I put it on Twitter, or X, formerly Twitter. And yeah, I really, really was impressed with Manel Kape. And obviously, I do believe he was going to finish Bruno Silva anyway. But it doesn't mean that the referees don't have to do their jobs and make the right decision and make the right call. So, you know, for Bruno Silva, I don't believe this is really that much of a drop of his stock because I do believe he looked good. I think just Manel Kape looked like a superstar tonight, looked like a champion, looked like a guy who could really get in there with Pantoja. Don't necessarily beat Pantoja, but definitely get in there with Pantoja. And for Bruno Silva, I think, you know, get back to the gym, obviously take some time to heal up and rest, get back to the gym. And I think we'll see him fighting in the top 10 very, very soon again. But Manel Kape, what an absolute beast. I think Dana White was very impressed with him, and I'm sure that he's going to get whatever he was asking for after the fight, speaking with Dana White again. But such good technical ability. I mean, the ability to switch stances, throw the leg kicks, lean back, showboat, slip, throw the 1-2 again. It's just an incredible performance by him. And obviously, you know what he did show as well? Manel Kape, as he does in a lot of his fights, is show his incredible ability to take a punch. Now, offensively, he's probably one of the most technical fighters in the flyweight division, but defensively, you can hit him. It's just that he doesn't get knocked out. And wow, incredible fight from him. But let's get into the next fight of the evening, and that was Vitor Petrino versus Dustin Jacoby. I predicted that Vitor Petrino would win this fight by a check left hook that he landed, I believe it was in Dana White Contender Series or in one of his fights. I don't remember exactly what it was. What was it? Let's see. I have it written down here. It was against, in Dana White Contender Series versus Bellato. Yeah, I mean, I thought Petrino would win again. He's just such a huge 205er. He looks like an absolute monster in there. He looked like double the size of Dustin Jacoby. once they got inside the octagon, started trading. And in those first 2 rounds, I mean, I thought Vitor Petrino did an incredible job of just using his range and distance, throwing the jab out there and just going to that calf kick and really landing it heavy on Dustin Jacoby. And I thought if he had just stayed on that, he would have won the fight and slowed down the movement of Dustin Jacoby. And he also wobbled Dustin Jacoby a couple times with the check left hook that I said he would land. And it did wobble Dustin Jacoby, but he was able to, obviously, Jacoby in the sense, recover, keep moving, take his time, stay patient. And what ends up happening is in that 3rd round, when you think, okay, Vitor Petrino might just coast to an easy decision here in terms of, not being the most eventful fight we've ever seen. Does he just coast to a decision? Does Vitor Petrino get back into the win column after that loss to Anthony Smith? Dustin Jacoby says no with an emphatic right hand straight down the pipe. I believe, as I said, Vitor Petrino goes to throw a lead left hook. And as he just unleashes the left hook and turns his body slightly to really rip the movement through completely, Dustin Jacoby fires one of the most devastating straight right hands I've seen in a long time. Absolutely folds Vitor Petrino, puts him to sleep. And Dustin Jacoby announces himself back into the win column in the light heavyweight division, back as one of the guys who's you've really got to beat to be an elite guy. And for Vitor Petrino, I think he'll look back at this fight and think, why wasn't I more active? Why didn't I stay on the leg kick? Why did I make some ill-informed or, not the smartest takedowns? Why did I give Dustin Jacoby that time to recover, set me up, get in rhythm? Look at what I was throwing. Why was I only throwing one shot at a time? Why was I not making Dustin Jacoby think more? And for Vitor Petrino, I keep doing that. For Vitor Petrino, he needs to get back in the gym and speak with his coaches about formulating more aggressive, but calculated aggressive game plans, because he has to use his frame, his size. He's got to get on those leg kicks way more, got to slow down his opponents, and got to stay with a jab, set it up. Don't just go, he's got to stick to the fundamentals and not just the crazy elite spinning, striking, Fernanda, not the craziest stuff. Vitor Petrino is one of those people that needs to just get the fundamentals correct, because he has everything else. If he can just stick to the fundamentals, the jab, the leg kick, the 1-2, frame, wait for your opponent to come in, throw the check left hook that he's shown he can do in past fights. I believe that Vitor Petrino will be disappointed in himself there. But obviously all credit goes to Dustin Jacoby, the betting underdog, delivers one of the best right hands of the year. And, I'm sure he's very, very happy this morning. Let's get into the next fight of the night. Now, this is one that I was most excited for in terms of Daniel Marcos. Obviously was 16-0 coming into this fight, undefeated undefeated, contender in this bantamweight division. And I felt like people were counting Adrian Yañez out unfairly. And I decided to go with the underdog, Adrian Yañez, in my predictions. And we really spent a lot of time discussing how good Yañez's stand-up was, his ability to, defend with his own jab, to throw the leg kicks, to throw the oblique kick to the front knee of his opponents to try and hyperextend their knees, and great body shots, and obviously, more than anything, he has incredible knockout power with that right hand. So I felt like people were counting Adrian Yañez out, and I honestly hadn't seen too much of Daniel Marcos. But I knew it was going to be a tough fight, very competitive fight, and candidate for fight of the night. And what happens? I believe that Daniel Marcos comes out and wins the first round, if I'm not mistaken, and then Adrian Yañez comes out and wins the second round. It could be the other way around if I'm not remembering correctly. But I had it 1-1 going into the third round there. And for me, obviously Adrian Yañez, wow, he looked like he was starting to build in that third round. Marcos looked like he was slowing down. Marcos is always very dangerous up against the fence if he has the underhooks and he's pushing your back against the fence. He's got incredible knees and elbows, able to kind of frame you, push you going one way off the cage and really hurt you and knock you out from those positions. But I thought Adrian Yañez did an incredible job to reverse those positions and really had Marcos clinched up against the cage. And the commentators, I was screaming for Yañez to disengage from the clinch and just start throwing bombs because he had him. Marcos was tired, exhausted. And at one point, as everybody mentioned on Twitter, as everybody was a bit bemused about, including Adrian Yañez himself in a Twitter post reacting to his fight, Marcos walks away like this. just like he's walking in the park going to get an ice cream on a nice summer's day. And Adrian Yañez doesn't even throw a single strike. And that happens 2 or 3 times in the last minute of the fight. It looked very wild. It looked crazy. But I want to say that I really do believe that we need to calm down on it a little bit. I was a bit like, what's going on here? Why is he not attacking? Why is he not throwing a head kick? I think Paul Felder literally said, if my opponent's doing that, I'm throwing a head kick. So it does come from fighters too. But, as fans, as media, we've got to be very careful of going, why didn't he do this? Why didn't he do that? Because we have no idea what is going through a fighter's mind, what they're dealing with. Adrian Yañez suffered a terrible eye poke that, he had a bunch of blood coming out of the eye, a bunch of Vaseline mixed in there. So, he was already struggling with that. And of course, after 15 minutes of fighting with an absolute monster like Daniel Marcos, you're going to be exhausted, and maybe he didn't have the energy to throw those few strikes. This is something that Xavier Vines talked about in his interview. A lot of people questioned Xavier but why did he tap with only 4 seconds left in the first round? Turns out that he didn't know what was going on. He got hit really hard. And these are the realities of fighting that sometimes we don't consider as media and fans. But what an incredible fight. I think Daniel Marcos is an absolute contender in this fight. But I do believe Adrian Yañez keeps his position as a contender as well because, he did an incredible job to, in my opinion, win that fight. If he just throws 2 or 3 kicks, 2 or 3 punches in that final minute of the third round. And, incredible fight from both these guys, 2 elite guys, and they were just in the pocket trading at one point. And, I think that's where Adrian Yañez thrives sometimes. He wants to create those 50-50 exchanges and believes in his ability to find the knockout shot first. But incredible fight. And, I was a bit sad for Adrian Yañez because I knew before he'd even put his video on Twitter, his reaction to that last minute, saying that I'm never going to let a third round happen like that ever again. I just felt for him because it was right there. And I knew he would look back and be disappointed and wish, he could go back and change it. But that's the fight game, right? That's the fight game. Those are the consequences. It's just every inch in there matters. And, that's sometimes what separates a win from a loss. But, still a huge fan of Adrian Yañez. And I've been made a fan of Daniel Marcos in the making as well. A Peruvian fighter who now is looking to probably get himself into a title picture with a couple of wins. And obviously, let me just get into the last fight of the night. The first fight of the main card, but the last fight of the episode. Navajo Striling versus Tuco Tokkos. Now, I do have an interview with Tuco Tokkos coming this week, and I'm very, very proud to say that Tuco from London as well. Incredible job in this fight, in my opinion, to make it so awkward for the star debut of Navajo Striling. Now, Navajo Striling is obviously part of that city kickboxing setup. I think he now goes to 6-0 with the win over Tuco. But he was a minus 750 betting favorite. A lot of people expected Navajo Striling to come in there and absolutely, knock out Tuco Tokkos. But what did Tuco do? Tuco showed great ability to just keep himself safe in the shell with his gloves, a high guard, and make it awkward for Navajo. Throw those kicks to the body, throw some body shots, throw some nice jabs, 1-2s out there, and clinch against the fence. Was able to take Navajo down quite easily, to be honest with you, in terms of obviously had to work a little bit for the takedowns, but once he connected the hands, was able to get Navajo down and kind of keep him there until Navajo, with a really athletic, huge, muscular body, is able to use his physical attributes to get back up. But, I think people are going to be like, why didn't Navajo do this? Isn't he supposed to be part of this elite city kickboxing setup? Isn't he supposed to be one of the best stand-up fighters in the UFC? I would say yes. Yes, he is. But Tuco made it awkward. Tuco made it a fight that looked like more like his fight. And, I know the judges gave it 30-27 unanimous decision. I definitely thought Tuco Tokkos won that second round with the grappling. I think he did more damage as well. So, I believe that this fight looked the way it did because of Tuco's ability to make the fight look like that. Although probably Navajo Striling did win rounds 1 and 3. I don't think this by any means should hurt Tuco's brand because Navajo Striling definitely is a killer. And I think we're going to see as Navajo builds throughout the UFC, him knock people out and him do things that he wasn't able to do to Tuco Tokkos in this fight. And that's how I feel about it. But Navajo Striling, he definitely has a lot of the attributes of that city kickboxing setup. You can see the way he stands, how he kind of keeps that right hand open and loose to let off the backhand. It reminds me so much of Israel Adesanya and Dan Hooker in the way they hold their hands. And, you know, he really looks like the next evolution of city kickboxing in terms of that, in terms of just the image. And I know he's going to develop. You know, he's only got 6 fights in MMA. He's definitely got to develop as a mixed martial artist, and he's definitely going to grow. And I think the UFC are going to be careful with him in that sense and let him build against fighters that are in his kind of ability level and in his echelon. And we're going to see a star being born, in my opinion. He's got all the attributes. He's got the look. He's got the ability and the knockouts in his history. I just think Tuco Tokkos did an incredible job to you know, obviously kind of nullify a lot of his attacks. Now, let's move on to just 1 or 2 more fights that I wanted to talk about. My goodness, Michael Johnson. You know, I think he's 38 years old. Obviously, the veteran at lightweight. A lot of people counting him out against Ottman Azaitar. And he just, again, another beautiful knockout with the right hand. Puts him to sleep. And this was just a night of knockouts, to be honest with you. And incredible performance by Michael Johnson. And I think I put a tweet out of what he said. He said, you know, I'm 38. I'm still here. I'm still going to fight the best of them. I ain't stopping anytime soon. And I think they mentioned on the broadcast that he was coming off a rotator cuff and labrum tear surgery. So, you know, incredible ability to come back from such a devastating injury like that. I've had a labrum tear. I know the difficulty of recovering from that injury, and to get back in there, to get a knockout when everybody was counting you out. Incredible performance by him. Just wanted to mention that very quick. Joel Alvarez. Wow. He is another one of these Spanish beasts. 6'3" at lightweight, gets the knockout. I mean, incredible performance. I think it was a flying knee, was it, that knocked him out? Knocked Drakkar Klose out. And then, how does he do it? I forget. He hits him with a knockout blow and then gets Drakkar Klose in a standing guillotine. And Drakkar Klose is literally knocked out whilst Joel is holding him up in the standing guillotine like this. And Joel is just holding him up with one hand and punching him with the other. The ref has to step in. It's one of the craziest knockouts I've ever seen. And he's going to be a star and definitely helps Ilia Topuria's case in terms of getting a pay-per-view event in Spain, maybe at the Bernabeu. So incredible performance. And Sean Woodson, I just wanted to mention him quickly. Incredible knockout of Fernando Padilla. Felipe Lima. Jesus, he looks very technical. I think he's on a 14-fight win streak. He's 14-1. That's his second win inside the UFC. Defeats Miles Johns very comfortably. Miranda Maverick looked very dominant in her ability to keep going in the grappling exchanges. Electric grappling exchanges in that fight, in my opinion. And Miranda Maverick showed her versatility. Davy Grant, the Englishman, my fellow Englishman, he looked great in that fight. Such good ability, so active with the kicks, and was able to not only, you know, show that he's still got a lot left in the tank at 38 years old, but that his mind for the game, his ability to outthink his opponent is what's keeping him successful in there. Really active with the kicks, really great boxing. And Ramon Taveras had a little bit of success, but I think dropped David Grant in the second round. But David was able to, you know, recover, build back, and I think deserved the 3-round unanimous decision. And that was just such a great card. So that's going to be it for today's episode. Such a great night of fights last night at UFC Tampa. And I just want to say thank you so much for all the love on the TikTok, on Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts. And I want to say thank you to Xavier, the Professor of Irons, for coming on the show. We've got Tuco Tokkos coming on later this week. And it's just been an incredible experience to build this community. And, you know, let me know what you guys think in the comments, by the way, about what do you think was fight of the night? Do you think Swanson should retire? And any thoughts you may have about what we've spoken about on today's show. And put your, you know, the notification bell on so you can see that when I upload, that you can just come straight to the episode. It's 2 episodes a week at the moment. And I'm really loving building this community. So thank you guys so much for all the support. Follow me on TikTok, follow me on Instagram, stay up to date with the YouTube. And of course, you know, thank you for listening to today's episode, and thank you for watching on YouTube. I'll see you next time for episode 12 of the Backseat Fighter Podcast.